I live full-time on a sailing catamaran, and right now Starlink provides the absolute best solution for us to access the internet. Doesn't matter whether I'm on land like I am right now, out in an anchorage or crossing an ocean, the Starlink gives me the ability to access high-speed internet. But within Starlink, you have different choices for the plans and the dishes. And this video is specifically about the Starlink Mini dish. The first Starlink Mini dish was released in mid-2024, and it was marketed as a portable, compact, travel-friendly dish. And I do think that's what they've created. They've created something that is smaller, more energy efficient, and perfect really for travelers, nomads, RVers, and boaters. We've had Starlink on our boat since 2023, but we didn't obviously start with the mini dish. We actually started with the high performance dish, and our rationale there was that at the time Starlink was limiting which dishes could access the immersion plans. That's not a consideration at the moment, and we felt that that dish should future-proof our setup. It worked flawlessly, very rarely had dropouts. It was a big dish, but perfectly fine on a catamaran. The problem we had was the power draw. It guzzled power. Like, we're talking even at idle 80 watts, which is a lot when you are relying on solar. Once we made the decision to get the Mini, it was then a matter of getting one and setting it up. And like all dishes, there's two components to this. You have to buy the hardware and then get the Starlink plan. Now, this is something I covered more in my Starlink for Boats video, which I will link at the top. But when it came to buying our dish, you have three choices. You can get one directly from Starlink, you can buy it from an authorized reseller, or you can get it secondhand. For us, we automatically discount buying the dish secondhand just because we want to know the complete history of it, because we rely on it for things like work, entertainment, communication, all of that. So that left us with buying it directly from Starlink or an authorized reseller. At the time, we were in the Caribbean, so we chose to get it from Starlink and have it shipped to us directly. Now, with the dishes, where you are and your service address can change the price. So that is definitely something to look into. When I was deciding where to buy our Mini, I looked at all the islands in the Caribbean that we're expecting to go to, which islands the Mini was even available in at the time, and what the price was going to be, and then what the price of the plan would be, and went from there. Once you have your dish, you then need to set yourself up with your plan. Now, as a boater, we're straight on to looking at the roam plans, and for us, we use enough data that it's definitely worth getting Roam Unlimited. Roam Unlimited, as I mentioned in my other video, you really want to look at where your service address is. Roam Unlimited in the United States right now for US registered dishes is $165. For some of the French islands in the Caribbean, you're looking at, I think, 90 euros. So that is a huge saving. When our Starlink Mini dish arrived, it didn't take that long. I think it was maybe 2 weeks. And I was surprised at how much was actually in the kit. So when we opened it up, we found there was a Starlink Mini dish, a kickstand, a pipe adapter and flat mount in one, a DC power cable that was 15 meters, an AC power supply plug, and the Starlink plug. Now, unless you want a different mounting solution, of which there are some out there, and I'll put a link in the description to a blog where I share some of them, you can make do with what's in the box mostly. So for our installation, we did use the Starlink mount that the Mini came with, and then the only other things we needed to buy were a watertight cable gland for where it goes through the deck, and a Victron Orion TR DC to DC converter. Now, you will notice in that list I had a DC power supply, and yes, while you can run your Starlink Mini off AC, the actual input is DC, which as a boater is fantastic. For the installation, the way we ran our system is that our Starlink Mini is installed on the roof. The power cable for it runs through a deck gland back to a Victron Orion TR DC to DC converter, which was a choice that we made to stabilize the input voltage. There's then a cable that runs back to our 48 volt DC system. We have a switch on it so we can turn it on and off as we want. We've had our Starlink Mini for almost a year now, and we are happy with it. We are so happy we actually have a second one in a box just in case something happens to the main one. In the time we've had it, we've been on the hard stand, we've been in anchorages, and we've done crossings between Caribbean islands where we are definitely more than 12 nautical miles from the coast. Some of the things we have noticed, so starting with the speed, don't really notice a speed drop when compared to the high performance dish. So we have 3 adults living on our boat. We all have things that we're doing online. We're doing video calls, we're doing voice calls, uploading and downloading large files, streaming, the works. We have multiple devices each, phones, tablets, laptops, and we don't notice any difference whether one of us is sending an email or 3 of us are streaming. The only thing we have noticed is we feel like it's slightly slower down in the cabins, which is the absolute furthest part of the boat you can be from the dish. But that said, I can still very comfortably lay in bed and be watching a movie while someone in the other cabin is laying in bed watching a YouTube video. So it's still perfectly fine for pretty much everything you want to do. I have the Starlink Mini app on my phone. I'm going to open it up right now and do a speed test to show you exactly what we're getting. Power draw. Our power draw is usually around 20 watts, which is 80% lower than what we used to have. It has actually changed our energy use to the point where we noticeably have to run the generator less than we used to now that we've installed the Mini. The ability to just very easily connect it to a DC power supply was another huge bonus for us. We spent so much time trying to figure out a way to do this with the high performance dish. This was easy. It was so easy with the Mini. And again, that was just something we really wanted to have the option to do on our boat to save power. And the Mini has made that completely, very easily possible. Offshore data. So during our last sailing season in the Caribbean, we did a number of crossings between islands. I think the longest was going from Martinique back to Trinidad. We just did it direct on the Atlantic side. And we're running the dish with the offshore data toggled on. Absolutely no difference to what we were experiencing when we were in an anchorage. So it performed perfectly fine offshore. Obviously we were more conservative in our data usage because when you have offshore mode toggled on, you're getting charged by the gig on top of your monthly plan. But it worked well enough that we have absolutely no concerns with its performance versus the high performance dish. One thing we did notice that has been a downside is this dish does cut out more frequently than the high performance dish did. The high performance dish only ever really cut out when we had significantly heavy rain, and it usually didn't cut out for long. The Mini cuts out a couple times a day, but those interruptions of service are like 1 or 2 seconds long, so you barely ever notice them. And it's not that surprising given the high performance dish was like this big and the Mini is about this big. For us, it really doesn't impact what we're doing with the internet, so the positives definitely outweigh that negative. An idea we're tossing around, which I'm going to test and I'll probably video and share the test, is whether we can run a Starlink Mini off a power tool battery. So we have Milwaukee M12 and M18 tool batteries on the boat, and we can't see any reason why, with the right adapter, we can't power our Starlink Mini with one of our M18 batteries. So we're going to test this because if we can, it means that we can now use a Starlink Mini dish completely portably. So all in all, the Starlink Mini has been a great addition to our liveaboard setup. We are very happy with it, so much so that we have a second dish in storage just in case something happens to the main dish. So I definitely would recommend it if you are considering getting one for your boat. It doesn't use much power and it gives you a lot more freedom.